So this is the backpack I always use. Its sizes, the dimensions are right at the limit of most airline companies, so it's perfect for as a carry-on bag. And this currently weighs around 7 kilos, which is also somewhere in the limit. Yeah, in this department I kept most of my toiletries. Again, a universal charger. Over here I have a just a small first aid kit, but also had a disinfectant, toothpaste and toothbrush. Yeah, I think that's about it. And it's a very basic first aid kit, but it's good to have. It's always good to have something. We also had a just basic wipes. I would also steal some from restaurants or hotel rooms, because especially in China you always need to have some for toilets. An eye mask, which I only used once. I think I have a regular mask in here as well. Some gum. Over here I have some medicine, including allergy tablets, just a basic painkiller, Imodium, melatonin. Yeah, I think that was it. Sunglasses, used once. Wet wipes, stolen from an airplane. A pen. I also had deodorant and a shaver, but DCA took it away. Kept the replacement blade though, I don't know why. Yep, I think that's it. Then we just go on to this compartment. Let's just open these. These are definitely good. Makes the bag smaller. So I have 2 power banks because my phone is small. It has a small battery capacity, and I've had it for almost 4 years now, I think. So the battery life is not great. So that's why I have 2 power banks. This one was the main one I used, and it's the biggest one by far, but I also have a solar one, which could be useful for certain situations. And then just a bunch of cables, some old boarding passes that I don't need anymore, a tripod, I think I only used once, a live straw, luckily I didn't have to use that. Same thing with this is sort of like a money belt, or more like a running belt, but yeah. Oh, a sunblock, definitely useful. And okay, yeah, these are some Som coins. Som is the currency used in Kyrgyzstan. I don't know why I kept them there though, but yeah. Here I have my travel documents, just a bunch of copies of my visa and passport, and some information about my vaccinations. Oh yeah, and the bookings that I had to make in order to get the visa, they're also there. And the traveler's insurance as well. Just basic stuff, yeah. And then the main compartment is where I kept my clothes. So let's see here. So this backpack also kind of opens up like a suitcase, like that. So I always kept some cookies as just easy calories if I was gone out somewhere for a long time. For example, when I went to that lake. Same thing with water. Just some trousers and not trousers, but some tights, shorts, and some clothes for the day. So this includes a t-shirt, socks, and underwear, all in one. just using a basic army roll technique, I was able to compress the day's clothes into this small package, right? But I have, I think I had 5 of them here, plus obviously the one that I was wearing. So I did laundry once every 6 days, and washed other things that I may have worn during that time. For example, the pants and this bucket hat that I bought in the small town of Huapi for less than 50 cents, I believe. But yeah, I have 5 of these packs. A long sleeve shirt, did not have to wear that, and a jacket. And then lastly, a sleeping bag, which is rated at 5 degrees, so you'll be able to sleep comfortably at 5 degrees Celsius, provided that you are properly clothed. 0 degrees is the limit, where you won't be comfortable, but you should be able to get decent night's sleep. And -14, that's the survival limit, where you won't necessarily die while inside this sleeping bag. But yeah, I bought this because I was able to compress it into this small size. So yeah, besides some random crumbs in here, that was it. Yeah, I have a few more pockets in here as well. Just overall very happy with this backpack. Given the fact that I spent quite a bit of time in China, coupled with the fact that I was mostly in rural areas which aren't visited by tourists, as well as that I visited several of China's regions, I thought I will give some. That's not to say that China wasn't culturally the most different place I've been in, which it was. And I've been to Brazil and South Korea. They did not feel as different as China. China felt so different in so many ways. They do a lot of things their own way, it feels like, just starting from their side of internet. In China, pretty much all of Western apps and websites are blocked, and China just has their own equivalent for anything. I think the only app that is kind of shared between these two worlds is TikTok, but I don't use TikTok, which is awkward because when I met with some local people, and we had some conversations, interesting conversations using translation apps. With few of them we wanted to stay in touch, but that was a bit awkward to do, as we didn't have any apps that we shared, so it will have to be either phone number or email. China is a very, very, very interesting country, and I will definitely go back to China at some point, for sure. And the thing with China is that it's probably one of the very few countries. Another one will be US, where you pretty much have every kind of biome in one country. It's just an extremely diverse country. Even though ethnically it's around 90% Han Chinese, there are so many ethnic minorities, and even within the Han Chinese majority, you have a lot of differences in dialects and traditions within China. That's very interesting, and I spent considerable amount of time in Anhui, Hebei, Shaanxi, and then Ningxia. These 4 regions mainly. The other ones were just on their way to something else. And each of these provinces felt significantly different from one another, even from the language and point of view. Even though I didn't understand anything that I was told, the language still felt different. The sound of it and the cadence, etc. Especially when going from Anhui to Hebei, because it's essentially, well, Anhui is like in the middle of China, sort of.
but probably closer to southern Chinese than northern Chinese. But when you're in Hebei, that's pretty much northern Chinese at that point, and close to Mandarin Chinese, the Beijing dialect. So the versatility that China offers in terms of nature, culture, etc. That's something I like very much about that country. And another thing is the infrastructure. Even in more rural areas, it didn't feel like there was a single square meter area which wasn't being cultivated in some way. Like each even smaller plot of land has to even have some kind of a farm, some kind of agriculture, some kind of a road infrastructure, some kind of a building or construction. Like it felt like there was just so much going on in China everywhere I went. It didn't feel like a single plot of land was uncultivated. You would probably only see those kinds of places when leaving the 94% line and going more towards the mountains and desert and a rainforest, where you'll be able to find large patches of land without much infrastructure or anything like that. So speaking of infrastructure, it's amazing in China, especially to transport it. And it's absolutely insane how much high-speed rail China was able to build for such a short period of time. And from my experience, it's a very fast and convenient way of traveling, and just very, very vast already, and it's only growing. And in places where that isn't available, I came to realize that I was able to reach most places by buses. And if not, the taxis are extremely cheap. One thing that actually did surprise me was that China was even cheaper than I thought. It's a very cheap country still. So if I wasn't able to reach some kind of a place or my next coordinates by bus or any other public transport, either went by walking or taxi, which was very cheap, or in some cases by hitchhiking, which was not that difficult, because out of all countries I've been in, I think 21 countries at this point, I would say China by far has the friendliest people I've met. And not to say that I didn't meet friendly people in other countries, I obviously did, but I think out of all countries I've been in, China has had the friendliest people, the kindest people, and people most eager to help tourists or something like that. And people are just, especially in rural areas, people are very, very curious about meeting foreign tourists, especially in just regular villages where I visited. So people will try to talk with you, take selfies, and just have conversations, and try to help you with something, trying to give you something. I had countless these kinds of interactions while in China. I just wasn't able to get that on film most of the time, but that was very interesting. Something I expected, but still very interesting, and something that took some time to get used to, because Finland culture is very, very different. Like these kinds of interactions are not apparent at all in Finland, especially with strangers. So that was very interesting from the culture point of view, which leads to some negatives, I guess. I won't say there are good or bad cultures or traits in different cultures, but few things that a lot of Chinese people did during my trip, which for me was a bit difficult to get used to at first, was things like, from like, I guess, Western point of view, just inconsiderate behavior, which like isn't universally inconsiderate. In China that won't be inconsiderate, it's only inconsiderate if Chinese people go abroad to like Western countries or something and behave similar way, then it will be inconsiderate, but not within China, because obviously as a tourist, when in Rome, behave like a Roman. But either way, there were a few things that Chinese people did that took me some time to get used to, and so behavior that I perceive as inconsiderate, such as speaking very loudly in enclosed spaces, like in buses or subways. For some reason, phone calls always have to be with a speaker. I don't know why. And other things like cutting in line, that was very common for some reason. And I had to learn a Chinese phrase for, hey, you're cutting in line, something like that. But even when I told some people that, they were like, oh yeah. But then they still tried to, like, if I was like talking with some kind of a service person, they will still try to say something from the side or show something on their phone, which was a bit frustrating, but apparently quite normal. And stuff like keeping doors open in hotels. Like, I don't want to see you half naked. Even in toilets, China has... But as I said, I don't think there are good or bad cultures. There's just different cultures. And this is not PR shit. I'm saying this from my heart. There's just different cultures, and the things I'm describing here, like some of Chinese people cutting in line and rushing into public transport without thoughts of others, that's just one small aspect of China's culture as a whole, which in itself is a very varied culture, depending on the region. And as I said, when in Rome, behave like a Roman. So for me to, because I'm the foreigner, I'm the guest in their country, so it's up to me to make the adjustment, right? So to combat the things I'm describing, I had to become more assertive myself, and yeah, that's how it works. And I actually, like, I read one thing about what might explain the assertiveness of Chinese people. It went something like if we're comparing Japan, for example, which is obviously known to be extremely cautious society with very considerate people, very organized lines. We all know that stuff. So if we're comparing to Japan, Japan experienced its economic rise in the 60s, and even before that, it had before war, the economy was at a pretty good shape, I believe. Only after the war there was tough times. But China, I think, faced more hardships in its history, and only from economic standpoint at least, and just very recently started to acquire wealth, and now there's a new middle class emerging in China, but that's all very recent in China. So it's basically saying that the memories of times of poverty is still very much ingrained in Chinese culture, sort of like some kind of a scarcity mindset, to be like, to have this gotta get mine kind of attitude, like there are only this number of seats, there's only this much of this product that I absolutely need and my family needs for our survival, so I have to do everything in my power to get it. So I don't know how accurate that notion is, but that's a pretty interesting one either way, and at least to me makes at least partial sense. And like, as people, we are all the same, obviously, but it's the environment, it's our environment that makes us different, physically as well as culturally. And yeah, it's just very interesting to read about these things. That's the answer is always in the history of a people's group and the environment and other surrounding factors. I've also read about, like, Russian people, for example. Why are they so apolitical? Which is now kind of binding them now, and a bunch of other things like that. And that's why I'm just so interested about geography and learning about different cultures. Just very multifaceted, and so there's just so much to learn and from different cultures. It's just, I love that shit. Again, go back to the infrastructure. China has fantastic infrastructure in terms of toilets. Something that, like, especially New York, was just terrible When China, it's great. Like even small towns have public toilets. Granted, most of them are not in good condition, but when you have a raging need to take a shit, you don't really care. At least I didn't. And for that, China was great because they were readily available everywhere. Usually didn't take long to find one. But yeah, even in public toilets, sometimes some people will take a shit with the stall door open. Like, why? I don't know. Yeah, one thing, I was actually a bit afraid of getting like food poisoning or something like that, even though I tried to take precautions like avoiding, when I will eat street food, I will avoid fresh vegetables, something like that, just have everything fried. I was still a little bit afraid that my gut biome would not like the sudden change in types of foods I was consuming. But I was fine. I only had very mild diarrhea a couple times, but other than that, I was perfectly fine. But with that being said, I want to note once more that Chinese people are extremely kind, extremely friendly. So do not hesitate to go to China if that country is in other ways something that will intrigue you. Yeah, language is obviously a difficult aspect, but learning a few key words and phrases goes a long way, and in some cases you can just get a message across with hand signals or just using a translation app. But yeah, to summarize, I really enjoy China, its food, its culture, nature, and just the fact that it has so much to offer, so much to see, so much places which are sort of undiscovered for non-locals, I guess. So for me and for my style of traveling, it's a very fitting place, so to speak. So yeah, thumbs up for China. I really liked it. Will visit again. I guess I might as well quickly skim through the other two countries I visited on my trip, those being Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, even though I only visited them for about 5 days. But yeah, as I mentioned, I was surprised about the difference in affluence between Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. I knew that Kazakhstan was the richest Central Asian country. They have oil and gas and good international relations. So I expected Kazakhstan to be richer, but looking at the GDP numbers as well as observing the differences in their biggest cities, the difference was bigger than I thought. Again, that's not I'm not trying to push a specific narrative with this, but that was simply something that surprised me a little bit. But yeah, I really enjoyed both of those countries. Probably the biggest thing was the food, because my mom grew up in Uzbekistan, as I explained, so I'm very accustomed to that kind of food, and it's kind of like a comfort food for myself. So yeah, I really like it. Yeah, I really like the culture in those countries as well. People were very kind and very helpful. They really kind of took upon themselves to be concerned about myself and my plans, which is not something that I necessarily wanted, but it's always good input, And so both of those countries, people are very friendly and really want you to have as good of a time in their country as possible. While in some countries, perhaps some people do not care as much, but in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, I felt like people really cared and wanted me to have a good time in their countries, and I felt very warmly welcomed in those countries. And yeah, I really like the vibe of both of these countries. Both of them felt kind of Soviet still in a way, especially Kyrgyzstan, but obviously with a lot of their own culture. But yeah, for Kazakhstan, it's again a very big country and a very diverse one. I only visited Almaty, so to get a good overview of Kazakhstan as a whole and its culture and nature and all of its aspects, I would have to visit other regions as well. But yeah, I really liked Almaty. It may have been my favorite city I visited during the entire trip. For China, at least, I can say that my favorite city was Wuhan. No kidding, I really like the city, its food and atmosphere. But for Central Asia, definitely Almaty. That was a city I very enjoyed. Just a mix of a lot of different cultures, and the atmosphere just felt very good. And the nature, the mountains are really close to the city. That was probably like the climax of the entire trip, just seeing that lake, being surrounded by mountains after hiking there for 2 or 3 hours. That was absolutely mesmerizing, and did not expect Kazakhstan to be like that. Not at all. Even the step that I saw when on a bus on my way from Bishkek to Almaty was absolutely breathtaking for me. And for me, coming from Finland, a foreign concept, something like I haven't seen steps before, so that was very interesting and very beautiful for me. But the highlight was definitely the mountains and the forests in those mountains that I saw when visiting that lake. So yeah, so Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, they both left a very positive impression on me as well. So yeah.
That was that. Until next time.